Well, hey there. To put together another little project I thought you might find interesting. We'll get stuck into it. It's going to be a bit of a long one, but it covers the idea of the XYZ axis mostly. I want to touch on how we can take particular shapes, 2D shapes, and convert them into 3D arrangements so that we can end up with something like this spinning circles that have been rotated and repositioned to form a bit of a globe here. I've just included the X, Y, and Z axis just to give you an idea where everything is. You can view that with your 3D overlays as well. It's just over here. When you look at this compass, red is the x-axis, the y is the green axis, and the z is the blue axis, just so you can keep a track of where you are as things are spinning around. As you see, I just took a bunch of circles and reorganized them so you could form this shape. But you can see I've just basically made some angles off a flat circle to give an idea of latitudes here. So I'm going to go through this and I'm going to cover a few things about that. So I'll just go on to the next one here, which is, this has got a similar thing. I've just got an idea of the X, Y, Z plus and minus where they are so you can navigate. But I've just made a simple rectangle. Go down here to the square and hit shift and pull out a square like that. So that ends up in the same group here. And as I open the inspectors on this, first we'll touch on geometry. You can adjust the size this way, so it's all a convenient size. But if we say put in 500, these are in pixels. But if we hit this convert to points like that, then you can see each point. There's control point 1, 2, 3, and 4. And regardless of where this rectangle is in the project, the control points stay the same because they are based off the zero of the shape itself. So whenever you make a shape, the 0, point is right in the center. When you control these points to make new shapes if you like, mainly so that you can get an idea of the actual size. Minus 250 plus 250 makes 500 pixels. 250 plus 250 and the y is there, control point 2. So this also helps you get an idea of where you are in the overall space. Is x plus and y plus. This is x plus and y minus, and so on, y minus, x minus, and x minus, and y plus. We got it here again as a guide. So, and of course when you go into a 3D, which we are going to be in a second, this group here is set to 3D, not 2D, so that we can get this XYZ axis. That's a short rundown on how these work. What I've done with these is I have firstly checked where the anchor points are, which is down here. You could click on that so you can see the anchor points are centered out. You can double check that in the properties. The anchor points are all there. The rotation is a bit off. I always like to try to correct any of these. If you hit reset parameter and reset parameter, that takes each section back to its original. So now we have that at center, and now we've got the group itself centered out. Even though this group includes this, though, it's a little bit off center. If I want to, I can create a new group, double click and call that X, Y, Z, and then I can just grab this one and drag it up into that group there so that it's separate. Now when I look at this group, it's zeroed out. Everything's zeroed out. So it's important that these are zeroed out nicely. And I'll just do 3 to give you an idea. So the first one will keep as a face. The second one will go into the rotations, and if we rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees, and we won't see it until we can see an idea of what's happening here is these rectangles are now, and that became okay. So then you can see as you click on each layer, you're highlighting the layer which is affected. So there's the one that's at 90, and that's one which we can rotate. We rotated this one on the y-axis, so if we rotate this on the x-axis, Now we're getting a series of rectangles that can be moved now to create, say, a cube, for example. You can actually make that back to transform. You can move the positions, put them at the right position of the X, Y, Z. So this one here, we want it to go down to the bottom. So we want that minus 250 because it's a 500 pixel square or cube, and half of that is minus 250. So we have the next one, which we want on the x-axis plus 250. So there's there, and then this last one, we want to move it in minus 250 in the z-axis. So now what we've created is a bit of a cube. Obviously you can go to the 3D library and pull up a cube this way, but there's not really a good way of taking a 3D cube and working out its size in pixels. And what I like about these is now with the opacity maybe dropped down a bit, you can actually use these as 3D guides. So if I reset I'll reset that as well. So it's right in the center. If I chose to open up the library and drag a cube in, there it is there. So we got the cube in the center. It just happens to be around the 500 size already, but if we take that and scale it down a bit, you can see that we can use these as guides to size things up in the project quite easily. I mean, not exactly, but it's close enough. So if we look at the left view, for example, and we scale it down, because the 3D comes in right at the center, and if you center your transparent cubic guide that you've created, then you can use this as sort of a guide for sizing up these 3D objects, which don't really have much in the way of scaling them up. It's a weird sort of a scaling. You have a unit size here, and then you've got original. And the thing is, I haven't worked out yet, and there's custom, but these units just don't seem to make any sense to me. Ideally, in this, it would be great to have some way of converting this unit size into pixels, but it doesn't. So not that I know of, and if anybody out there knows of a way, then please leave it in a comment. But currently, this unit here, as you see, you have very little control. It looks to me like the 5.1 is maybe a hundredth of what the pixels are. The cube, I've read that the cube comes in at 510 pixels as standard. So this unit size here is just a little bit. They should just take make that 510 pixels, but I don't know why they do that. So if you've got any explanation on that, please leave a comment, because it's been bugging me for months now since I started using this program. If you have After Effects, Adobe After Effects, then they have a real quick way of creating, editing the size straight away. So, and I haven't been able to find a means of doing that. So this is why I have chosen to make this tutorial, to give you an idea of how you can use these exact size squares, use it as a guide. In this next one is what I'm getting to about here, is that open so you get an idea of the different sizes. So if you take your rectangle, and if you notice, I've got a couple of different groups going on. With this group here is going to have all the rectangles. So I just get 6 of those, and then I can plug in the inspector. I can plug these numbers. This is the position, basing on the fact that this is a 500 pixel square, and basing it on it's all zeroed out at the beginning. It's a good idea to also have everything zeroed out when you're starting fresh. You can just plug these numbers in. So this top one, the position here, X is 0, Y is 250, Z is 0, and over here the rotation, X is, whoops, I've just, I plugged that in wrong here, sorry. Y is 250 here. The X rotation is 90. And already you start to get you can get an idea how quickly to make a cube this way. So yeah, if you just notice that, or take a screenshot if you like. This just gives you a general, it's a quick formula. And of course you can make these up for triangles, circles, everything. And I like to keep these as templates. So I'll plug these in again. I'll open up the inspector. So the next one will be the bottom, and again position Y is minus 250, and rotation on the x-axis is 90. So you can see pretty quickly how you can make a cube in 3D space. If you want to have exact sizes, you can make up these cubes to whatever you plug in 500 and minus 500, that sort of thing, and make up a 1,000 pixel cube if you want. So you can create guides pretty quickly this way. So once you have this formula and you do these up for other shapes, then it's quite easy to just keep it handy. The front is Z is 250, and then this last one, Z is minus 250. Sorry for saying Z and not Z, but it's become a habit since I moved to Australia 30 odd years ago. Okay, so now we've got a cube. I've got some lights on there too, which if you switch that off. Now, because this is the group, I've got the 6 sides all positioned within the group nicely. So now this group you can rotate, and maybe rotate it just a little bit on the Y. So now we've got a bit of shading going on. So I'll go back here now, and we can rotate that around. Notice that it's real extreme with the white sides. You can actually take the opacity down a bit if you're using it as a guide. So when anything that gets placed in there. So there you go. So there's a little cube there which you can manipulate it around. If you wanted, you could put images in to make shapes as well. So you get the idea, though. You can actually make that into a side as well. Again, you want to make sure your anchor points are centered out, which I think I did, but let's just double check by looking at the left. Okay, yeah, it's centered. I know it's got a rotation on it now, so you can check your anchor point there for each left, top, and front maybe. So you know that that's centered in there, so when you spin things around, it's really important to make sure you've double checked where your anchor points are, so that it revolves and scales away from and around the center point which you want. You might not want it in the center, you might want it to one side, but it's always good to start projects with your anchor points zeroed out nicely. I have this guide here which has a top, bottom, all that. This actually gave us a guide which we can then bring in whatever we want to fit that. This particular case here, it's one of my favorite things to do, is I used 3D text to create funny shapes here. So this is actually, I've used this in another demo here, so I'm comfortable with it. I got one later on that's a bit more complicated, but this is just 3D text. So you select 3D text and you type in just the shift and the vertical bar, which is above the return key. So you can see I can just change the shape there. Appearance, I select ice block because it's transparent. You have different stains, dirt, dents, that sort of thing. You can select the surface. You can select the edging of it, which is square or round or any of these. There's quite a bit to choose from. By using 3D text characters as shapes, gives you a bit of a workaround from trying to create a 3D object solid that has any sort of material, because Apple just doesn't give it to you. If you go into CD4 that you can get with After Effects, those you can actually apply different materials to a 3D object. So you create say a smooth sphere, you can actually add a material of concrete or paint or whatever, and then you have that look. But you can't do that with the 3D shapes here. I haven't worked out. If there's something I've missed, if anybody knows, certainly comment about it. But I have not been able to work out how to apply a material to this, or a color, without making it look a bit weird. I've tried the colorize filter. If you want to have two 3D objects joined in to create a shape, then there's a problem with colorizing. So you can take that group and rotate the two together, but as soon as you put a colorized filter on it, it makes it look like an X-ray of each other. So I don't even bother with trying to do that. So it would be nice to be able to apply some sort of cool surface to this. Maybe Apple will be coming up with that another time, but honestly, I don't expect too much out of this program. Being here in Australia, it costs $80 to buy the app, so it's not expensive. After Effects, the whole package can cost $70 a month over here for all the apps, the whole kit, Premiere Pro and After Effects and Photoshop and all that. So there's a big price difference between the two of these programs, so it's fair not to expect too much. So the next workaround is basically just using 3D text, and you can use the vertical bar, you can use a period, which gives you a nice cylinder. Probably work around with that a little bit to make it into a sphere, but they're not exact, but at least you have the option of taking that text and you can give it some paint or something instead. So, and if I hit that solo, I've got basically just one shape here. Squared off edges, a choice of, I've got dents on that face, you can make it scratches or something if you like. You can change that around anyway. These are beautiful because they're already opaque. I've got one coming up where I've got the camera actually going inside the shape, so still more to come, which are pretty interesting. So anyway, so now I've got pretty cool, this is probably not sized as well. Oh, I got it on the front, that's why active camera. So you can see there, you can see it in the, let's just bump that up a little bit. So we can adjust the scale, the side scale of these things a bit. So this remember, it started off as just a vertical bar, and then you can see the kind of proportions I've blown it up. If you want to look at the front instead, and again we've got these rotations. I'll just reset the rotations. Reset that. Okay, so now we're looking at the front here, and remember I'm just soloing this one. Let's see. So first I look at the anchor point, and really got to bring that anchor point down to more the center. And we look at the left side. So with text, I noticed that when you create a text, sometimes the anchor points for the 3D text layer are way out of proportion to what they're supposed to be. So before you start making up any composite shapes of these, I did one where I did a 3D cabin all out of those vertical bars, but you have to get your very first text object sorted out, zero it out as best you can, then you can make copies of it and it'll be right. So right now we've got the left side there. Bring that back up again. So if we take that and we rotate it on the y-axis, these can all be sort of scaled up based on the view too. So I got the left side here, so the Z scale can be taken back a bit to square it up. It's not an exact science, but with those guides that I created, you can actually get a pretty good idea what size you're dealing with. So then if we look at the top view, we can see basically the same view, but that Z's still a little bit off. And then we look at the front view, and it looks pretty square. So now when we rotate it around, we can get an idea. Again, we're looking at our perspective gets thrown away a little bit when we have the one view on. So throw it back to the camera, it does make it look a bit better. So as you see here, it's a pretty cool glass cube that we've made up, and those are exact dimensions. The camera up here, we can look at because this I've had an animation going to it, so we can actually take those angles back a bit and move the position around and that sort of thing. So with the camera can affect how it looks. But anyway, that's a glassy little cube there, which could be used in an animation quite effectively. So the next one, hit save on that. I'll close that out. So this one here, this is a bit more complex. This one here, I've got it's set up. There's a series of plus As you can see, there's a plus. So I've taken one plus, I've got the size I wanted, and duplicated many times, and there's an asterisk in the center too. Just I've got that glowing in the center, just so it's indicating where the center of this overall cube is. And so the camera's spinning around. It's probably chugging a little bit here because I've got QuickTime going to record the screen, so it's not going as quickly as it can. I do have some QuickTime movies, but I don't think I can play them while I'm recording this screen with QuickTime. So there it is there. There's the little, I've used asterisks there, and there's a bunch of those. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in each group. And so they're all rotated slightly different. And then the group itself is rotating around. So I've put the cube guide in there, and I really don't want it in there. I think what I'll do is new group and drag that up to there. And delete that one. So I've got the guide up at the top there. So there's your asterisks are going on there, and then with this I've got the original. You can see the layers really can start piling up here. There's the original, just a single plus symbol that has a nice geometric feel to it, square front edge. I can actually change that one to a paint instead. Should be in there somewhere. Oh, there it is, way in the back there. See that one of them there is the red paint there. So I built that up with X, Y, Z rotations here. So that's 0, that's 90 on the Z and 90 on the Y. So I've made these little groups, and then I've duplicated these groups, and then just basically linked them up into a bigger cube. Look at the front view here, so you get an idea. There it is there. So it's just a big cube that I've just made individual. So that's one group, 2, 3, and all of those get put into a larger group. So each one of these groups can have element of editing. So on this one I've used it to blow it up a bit, and this one here has got, well, that one is a group that is the 9x3 face. So this is the back face at -200. This is the front face at +200, and that's the middle one. So if we look from the left, we can see I've got there, and there. So I created this great big group, and then I've taken and you can see there's the camera. So if we look at the top view, and we highlight the camera, I take that down a bit, so you can see there's the camera working. So the camera is set up to be a framing camera, which means that the axis, the anchor point is at this point here, not back here. This is the viewing axis, but this is the framing axis. I've got some near, and I got some depth of field going on, near focus and far focus, and there's the angle there. So if you change the angle, the camera moves around a bit differently. So so you can get an idea when you're setting up your camera to do whatever it's going to do. This top view is quite handy if the camera is sort of set at the Y and the Z axis. So anyway, we'll go back and enjoy that view one more time. So there's the pluses there. I built them up, and I threw that red one in there just to there it is there. So, and then the lighting, there's the lighting there in the center, which is illuminating the center asterisks that are rotating around. They're illuminating them red, and the camera is spinning around on the outside. So you can get some interesting effects going on there. But just remember that all these things can be based on using a 500 by 500 cube guide, which I've got here, and depending on how you want to actually position it around. See, there's the cube there. This is the last one anyway I've got it to do. It shows how by using, in this case I've used hexagons. Well, I've got some circles in there that are different colors and at 90 degrees of each other. So we've got an interesting little molecular thing going on here. And these glowing orbs are, you could just make them out as hexagons. And I've got these hexagons and they're all just slowly turned a little bit, rotated and repositioned to create this, and of course the opaque set down on it, so you could get this sort of glowing effect going on. Anyway, I could go on forever on this, but the idea basically is just to give you an idea of what you can do. You can sort of work around and create 3D layers and projects without actually using 3D. You can sort of see how many I've got going. So move that off to the side a little bit so we can pick apart this one here. We've got a bunch of shapes here. I'll delete them as I go. So if we start, so there's one group, there's another group. So there's two groups in this this one here. So now I've just made copies of each other. There's a smaller one in there too, where is it? There it is. So that's the big one. That's the small. I'm going to delete that. So we're breaking it down to basically show you that in this group here, and I've opened that up, and now we've got basically 2 hexagons. So delete one of those, and that's what we started with basically, is 1 hexagon. And just similar to the thing where I made the cube up, I started, duplicated it, rotated a little bit. Hexagons, they rotate in 30 or 60, that sort of thing, so you can play around with different ways of rotating it. And so just keep duplicating and rotating as you go. So so there's the X. If we do that at 30, it just throws it a little bit off. So you can see here, you can build up a shape like this pretty quickly by just creating 1 hexagon and just copying it. And we've got them rotated. I'll put that back to 0 so that, and there we go. So we got that at 90 there. So all of a sudden what we've got is a shape is being built out. So you've got 3 here which make the X, Y, and Z. And then of course you can just put those into a group, and that group can then be rotated as 1. Anyway, I'll leave you there, but there's quite a bit to go through on this one. I just wanted to put it all in one package, so you can wade through it as you like. So I hope it's helpful. Just remember the simplicity of just making up simple shapes in 3D, and like I said, I use those as guides sometimes. I'll leave you with it, and yeah, thanks for watching. I'll probably be back with another one in the near future, so thanks.